All right, Cowboys Nation. Before we dive headfirst into what might be the most delusional thing I've ever read coming out of Green Bay, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because we are covering every single Cowboys move, rumor, and reaction the second it happens, and you don't want to miss a thing, especially when rival fan bases are out here embarrassing themselves like this. So, a Packers website, Fansided's Lombardi Avenue, just dropped an article claiming they won the Micah Parsons trade, and I'm not kidding when I say this might be the most desperate piece of cope I've seen in years. The title alone had me laughing out loud because it says the Packers trade for Micah just keeps looking better and better. And if you believe that after everything that's happened since that deal went down, I've got some swampland in Dallas to sell you. This article was written by a guy named Michael Haney and posted in April of this year. And I promise you, by the time we're done breaking this down piece by piece, you're gonna see just how absolutely ridiculous this whole thing is, and why Green Bay fans should be embarrassed that this even made it to print. Let me set the stage real quick so everybody's on the same page about what actually went down in this trade, because context matters, and these Packers fans seem to have forgotten half of it. Green Bay sent Dallas their 2026 first-round pick, their 2027 first-round pick, and veteran defensive tackle Kenny Clark in exchange for Micah Parsons and a fourth-rounder, and at the time, people thought maybe Green Bay got themselves a cornerstone pass rusher to build around for the next few years. Fast forward 7 months, and the Cowboys are sitting pretty with the 20th overall pick in this year's draft. They've already flipped assets to bring in Quinnen Williams from the Jets. They got Rashawn Gary in a separate move, and they still have flexibility going forward while the Packers are stuck paying Micah Parsons $47 million a year and watching him rehab from an injury that's going to keep him out for half of next season. But somehow, this article wants you to believe that Dallas got the raw end of the deal because the 20th pick isn't valuable enough and the draft class is weak, which is one of the most brain-dead arguments I've ever heard. And we're gonna rip it apart line by line because it deserves it. The article starts off by saying the Packers are still finding more ways to win the deal, and I genuinely don't know what planet these people are living on, because every single measurable outcome since this trade happened has favored the Cowboys. They claim that the 20th overall pick the Cowboys received turned out to be much less valuable than it initially seemed, and that Dallas might be stuck with no clear options on the board. And I'm sitting here thinking, did this dude even look at the draft board, or does he just hate the Cowboys so much that he's willing to lie to himself in public? Pick 20 is a premium spot in any draft class. It's exactly where teams trade up to grab a quarterback if one slips. It's where you can snag an elite offensive lineman or a top-tier safety or another edge rusher in that second wave of talent. And acting like Dallas is gonna whiff because the class is supposedly weak is just flat-out dishonest. The article goes on to say that after the top 15 prospects, there's an alarming drop in talent, and that players ranked 20 through 40 are almost interchangeable. And it's real convenient that the drop-off starts exactly at pick 20, isn't it? Almost like this whole thing was written just to make the Cowboys look bad and make Packers fans feel better about a trade that's already aging like milk in the sun. Here's the part that really gets me fired up and shows you just how flimsy this whole argument is. The writer acts like the Cowboys are going to be forced to reach on a guy like edge rusher Shamar Stewart or some other prospect with question marks. But he completely ignores the fact that Dallas could easily trade back from 20, pick up more assets, and still land 2 or 3 starting caliber players instead of just one. He also conveniently forgets to mention that even if the Cowboys do stay at 20 and take the best player available, they're getting someone who's going to contribute immediately on a rookie contract, while the Packers are paying Micah almost $50 million a year, and he won't even be on the field until October at the earliest, and that's if his recovery goes perfectly with no setbacks. The article tries to paint Green Bay as confident in what Micah will be when he comes back. But how can you be confident in a guy whose entire game was built on elite athleticism and explosiveness when he's coming off a major injury that's already cost him half a season and will cost him half of another? It makes zero sense unless you're just writing fiction to cope with a bad trade. Now let's talk about what the Cowboys actually got in return, because this is where the whole argument falls apart, and you start to see why Packers fans are so desperate to rewrite history. Dallas didn't just get the 20th pick. They got Kenny Clark, who's been a rock on the defensive line. They got Rashawn Gary, who's a productive edge rusher in his own right. They got the 2027 first-rounder, which still has value. And let's not forget they used the capital from this trade to go out and get Quinnen Williams from the Jets in a separate deal that never happens without the Micah trade setting it all up. So when you add it all up, the Cowboys turned Micah Parsons into Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Quinnen Williams, a first-round pick in 2026, and a first-round pick in 2027, while the Packers got Micah on a massive contract and a fourth-round pick, and somehow we're supposed to believe Green Bay won this trade. Get out of here with that nonsense. One of the big Cowboys blogs, Blogging the Boys, even posted a breakdown of the net results of the trade and conveniently left Quinnen Williams off the list, which just shows you how even some of our own media likes to push a negative narrative and downplay what this front office has actually accomplished. And that's something we need to call out because it's dishonest and it misleads the fan base. Let me hit you with some more facts that completely destroy this Packers fantasy. Right now, according to ESPN, the Packers' top need in the draft is edge rusher, the same position they just spent $47 million a year on, which tells you everything you need to know about how that trade is working out for them. They don't have a pick until 52 overall. They lost a ton of key contributors in free agency, including guys like Romeo Doubs, Key Walker, Elgton Jenkins, and Rashawn Gary, and they couldn't replace them with anything close to the same level of talent because they didn't have the cap space or the draft capital to do it. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are sitting on picks, they've got cap flexibility, they've added proven veterans, and they're in position to keep building a Super Bowl roster while Green Bay is stuck in no man's land with an injured star on a mega deal and a roster full of holes they can't fill. On top of all that, their defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley, who told everyone he was coming back, ended up taking a head coaching job somewhere else and took a bunch of coaches with him, which should tell you something about the vibe in that building and how confident people are in the direction of that team. Here's another thing that nobody's talking about, but it's huge. Veteran pass rusher Cam Jordan was asked by a Packers fan on social media if he'd be interested in joining Green Bay. And you know what Cam said at 3 a.m, probably after a couple drinks when the truth comes out? He said, "Why would I go there when y'all got Micah?" And that is a loud statement from a guy who just had a 10-sack season and could help any team in the league. That tells you that around the NFL, players are starting to see what Micah really is. They're seeing the drama, the social media stuff, the injuries, the contract situation, and they want no part of it, which means Green Bay is going to have a hard time attracting talent to play alongside him even if he does come back healthy. Meanwhile, in Dallas, guys are lining up to play with this defense. They want to be part of what Mike Zimmer is building, and they know they're going to have a chance to compete for a championship every single year, and that matters when you're trying to build a winner in this league. So let's bring it all together and make sure we understand exactly what happened here. The Packers gave up 2 first-round picks and a starting defensive tackle to get a guy who's played half a season for them, is going to miss half of next season, is eating up a massive chunk of their cap, and has their top need in the draft still listed as edge rusher. The Cowboys turned that same player into multiple starters, multiple first-round picks, one of the best interior defenders in football in Quinnen Williams, and they still have ammo to keep improving, and somehow a Packers blog is out here trying to convince their fan base that they won the trade, and I just can't wrap my head around that level of delusion. This isn't analysis, this is cope. This is a fan base that knows deep down they messed up, and they're trying to make themselves feel better by pretending the draft pick Dallas got isn't valuable and ignoring every other piece of the puzzle that shows they lost this deal badly. And the crazy part is, if you go look at the comments on that article, even some Packers fans are calling it out and saying, "This is embarrassing," because it is. It's pure desperation disguised as football analysis, and it should never have been published. Now, I want to talk about what this means for Dallas moving forward, because that's what really matters to us as Cowboys fans. We don't need to spend all day worrying about what Green Bay is doing. We need to focus on how we're building a championship roster. With the 20th pick, Dallas can go a lot of different directions. They can take an offensive lineman to protect Dak and open up running lanes. They can grab a safety to pair with what they already have in the back end. They can add another edge rusher to go with the guys they already have. Or they can trade back and stockpile even more picks to keep this thing rolling. The flexibility is what matters, the fact that we're not locked into one move, and we've got options all over the board, and that's the position you want to be in as a front office when you're trying to build long-term success. The Packers don't have that flexibility. They're stuck. They're paying a guy who can't stay on the field. They've got no draft capital, and they're losing key players left and right. And that's what happens when you panic and make a win-now move that blows up in your face. And I don't feel bad for them at all, because they brought this on themselves. Let me also remind you that this whole situation proves something we've been saying on this channel for months. Stephen Jones and the front office know what they're doing, and they're playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. When they traded Micah, half the fan base lost their minds. People said we were giving up on the season. People said we'd never replace his production. People said it was a franchise-altering mistake, and now look where we are. We've got a deeper roster. We've got more cap space. We've got more draft capital. And we didn't skip a beat on defense because guys stepped up, and the scheme got better. And we added real difference makers like Quinnen Williams, who's going to be here for years to come. That's how you build a winner in the modern NFL. You don't overpay for one guy and hope he carries you. You spread the wealth, you add talent at multiple spots, and you make sure you've got the flexibility to keep improving every single year. And that's exactly what Dallas is doing right now, while Green Bay is stuck in quicksand. I also want to touch on the media angle here because Blogging the Boys and some of these other Cowboys sites, they love to push the doom and gloom narrative. They love to act like everything the front office does is wrong. And they conveniently leave out context like Quinnen Williams being part of the Micah trade tree when they're breaking down the results. That's not an accident, that's a choice, and it's designed to keep the fan base angry and clicking on articles and watching videos. But it's not honest, and it's not fair to the work that's actually being done. We've got to hold our own media accountable the same way we hold the team accountable. Because if they're going to mislead us and push false narratives just to get engagement, then they're not really serving the fan base, they're serving themselves. And that's something I'm always going to call out on this channel no matter who it is. We deserve better than that. And if you want honest Cowboys coverage that doesn't sugarcoat things but also doesn't twist the facts to fit a narrative, then you're in the right place. And before we wrap this up, make sure you're subscribed. Because we're growing fast, and we need your support to keep bringing you this kind of content every single day. So here's my final word on all of this. The Packers can cope all they want. They can write as many articles as they need to make themselves feel better, but the facts don't lie and the scoreboard doesn't lie. And right now, the Cowboys are winning this trade by a mile, and it's not even close. Green Bay gave up the farm for a guy who's going to be 30 years old before his contract is up, who's already missing significant time, who's causing drama in the locker room if you read between the lines with what guys like Cam Jordan are saying, and who's keeping them from filling holes all over their roster. Dallas got younger, deeper, more talented, and more flexible, and they're set up to compete for championships for the next 5 years, while the Packers are hoping they can squeeze 2 good seasons out of Micah before the wheels fall off completely. That's the reality. And no amount of copium from Lombardi Avenue or anywhere else is going to change it. And I think deep down Packers fans know that. Which is why they keep writing articles like this trying to convince themselves they didn't mess up. Would you trade Micah, a 4th rounder, and $47 million a year in cap space for Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, Quinnen Williams, and 2 first-round picks? Because I would make that deal every single time and twice on Sunday. And if you wouldn't, I don't know what to tell you except maybe you need to take off the green and gold glasses and look at this thing objectively for once in your life. Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you believe the Cowboys fleeced the Packers? Or do you think Green Bay has a chance to turn this thing around? If Micah comes back healthy and plays like an all-pro for the next 3 years, I want to hear your honest take on it. And look, I'm not here to trash Micah as a player when he's healthy. He's one of the best in the game. But this trade was never about whether he's talented. It was about value and sustainability and building a complete roster. And on those fronts, Dallas won this thing going away, and the results speak for themselves. The Packers are stuck. They're capped out. They're draft poor. They're losing key players. And their top need is still edge rusher after spending a generational contract on the position. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know, then I don't know what will. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are loading up. They're adding talent. They're building depth. And they're doing it the right way. And that's why I'm more excited about this team's future than I've been in years. Because we're finally playing the long game instead of chasing quick fixes that blow up in our face. All right, Cowboys Nation. Appreciate y'all rocking with me on this one. Make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one. Go Cowboys, and remember, we dem boys, and we're still running this thing no matter what the haters say.